everybody. Happy Sunday. Living in unprecedented times, I must say. All right, we're going to talk about a few things. First of all, we're going to be talking about 56% of people feel like the tariffs that are going to affect the housing market. I'm going to be breaking down how some of these things could be affecting us. We're going to be going over an article that talks about that. I also have a chart of, because what I wanted to do is break it down in how it would affect affordable housing. I'm talking about tiny homes, manufactured homes, modular housing. How would this increase or affect this particular branch of housing, since that is the one that I mostly talk about, but they also have a stockpile. So we're going to get into that a little bit more. But first, I want to talk to you. Normally, I do something that's like something's ridiculous that a real estate agent did. But what I've been seeing on social media recently is a lot of posts talking about the mortgage interest rates right now. And if you didn't see, like all day Friday, mortgage interest rates were fluctuating so much at one point that it actually reached for a brief moment into the fours. Again, briefly. So Eddie, if you could show that post real quick. And this was the post. It said, did Trump crash the market to drop mortgage rates? So the theory in the comment section of all of these real estate agents and mortgage brokers comment section was that they feel like the administration decided to go ahead and tank the stock market to make it more affordable for people to purchase a house. I don't necessarily agree with this figure. So this is I'm just saying this. And I told you guys this week and I told you last week and the week before that, whenever there is turmoil in the stock market, I don't know much about stocks. I'm not a stockbroker. This is not financial advice. But whenever there is turmoil in the stock market and investors feel kind of icky, they try to turn their money into something that is a little bit more reliable. And that happens to be the 10-year treasury yield. That's what they do every time. And so when there's a sell-off, what are they selling it off to? They put it in a more secure type of investment in their feeling. So that's when you see mortgage rates start to adjust. In these posts, they were saying, well, the national debt is so incredibly high. And now the interest rates on that debt are actually making the debt even worse. So if you tank the stock market, and you can refinance the debt at a lower rate, making it easier for the administration to handle some of the tax cuts. This is the theory that they're using to justify or say this is why the stock market's doing what it's doing. I'm no expert on this. All I know is what I know, which is whenever there's turmoil, they invest in the 10-year treasury. This happened into 2008 as well. And whenever those interest rates did come down in 2009 and 2010, 2010, what ended up happening? Consumer confidence at that time wasn't great. People were starting to lose their jobs. They were feeling very insecure. Real estate was in a free fall, not because of just the stock market. I mean, people had kooky loans and it was a hot mess. Will this look like 2008? I do not think so. But that doesn't mean that I think that this was all intentional to get mortgage rates to come down. That seems very short-sighted, in my opinion. I mean, I would like to think there was a much bigger plan than this, than people losing like their whole 401ks when they're about to retire. I think there's a bigger plan to all of this. I would like to think there is a bigger plan. But the thing is that all of this started, the catalyst of all of this started with one thing, and that was the announcement of the tariffs. So to talk about that and make it more, realistic for what we're talking about, which is affordable housing, how would tariffs affect people that are trying to find the most affordable homes? Whether you're buying it from Amazon, whether you're buying it from your local builder right down the road, whether you're buying it for a manufactured home from someone like Clayton. I mean, all of these things are going to matter. So let's talk about it. Eddie, if you could put that article on the screen, I want you to put that up really quick. Da, 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 da. All right. Trump tariff shutdown could have a huge impact on the housing market. Eddie, I want you to scroll all the way down. I think it's like right between an advertisement because we all know what happened past week. He made the announcement, blah, blah, blah. I'm looking for the we all know about lumber. Oh, no, no, no. Oh, here it is. The National Association of Home Builders, the president, Jim Tobin, believes that these tariffs will counteract the progress being made in the sluggish housing market. Go ahead and scroll past that advertisement, please. The organization noted that the tariffs are not only expected to rise in costs for building materials, which are already up 34% since December of 2020, far higher than the interest rate of inflation, but will also wreak havoc on building materials in the supply chain. In turn, this will put even more upward price pressure on building materials. The NAHB says that these tariffs will increase the new home prices on average of between $9,200, but some projections are giving it up to $25,000. Here's the thing, and this is the conversation I want to have. People are saying, well, what's happening is that we're getting too many building materials from foreign entities, and that we're going to bring back manufacturing for these, building materials, and everybody knows about lumber, and that's already received a tariff. So that's already increased the price. That's why you're seeing that 34%. That was from soft lumber coming from Canada. But we have other building materials that involve a house. One of them happens to be gypsum. So go ahead and pull up that chart that I made before the live stream, Eddie, if you could, please. Da 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 da. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Edward. Eddie's very excited right now. Well, I'll tell you why. Yesterday was his birthday. Oh. All right. Let me all right, here it is. Okay, so this is the graphic I wanted to put out there. So first we have the announcement of the tariffs, right? We have the tariffs here. Trump made the announcement, it's happening, right? So the impact of this is not going to be shown immediately. This isn't going to happen overnight. But then you're going to start seeing things start to rise in price. So it's going to take 1 to 3 months for supply chains to adjust upward, right? So you're going to find that, they're going to find workarounds just like they did during the pandemic, but it's still going to raise the price because it takes time to find those workarounds. The next thing that we saw was the builders end up raising the price. But what I'm reading and I'm seeing from a lot of home builders, and even my husband has seen it himself in his field, a lot of home builders are just saying, you know what? We're nervous. We're not even going to build anything. So we're going to see a retraction of home building and new home permits. Then after that, so now we're going to have the government reinvest into the infrastructure that would be required to make some of these building materials. Almost all the gypsum and drywall materials come from Mexico, Vietnam, all these other places. So now you have to reinvest into the country. That's going to take years. You can't build a factory overnight. You can't start mining and doing all these things overnight. We're talking a minimum of 4 years. Now we got to talk about copper wiring. We have to find the proper mine to, do this copper mining. You got to find the employees to mine that copper. Now you got to build a whole new factory to, string out all the wiring that would be required. You got to find all the workers for that too. They're not just the mine, the factory, and all the infrastructure that is involved in that. That's going to be a lot of investment and incentives given by the government to make this happen. And we all know the government doesn't work quickly. Minimum, again, 4 years, minimum. I mean, that's if the chips fall in the perfect line in order for that to happen, where prices would actually come back to where they are today. Now we're talking about, let's just see, roofing materials. A lot of those roofing materials are not done here in the United States. Now, there are places in Texas and, where else? there's several other states that make roofing materials. I'm not saying that, but they've never been able to keep up with the demand of roofing materials. And that's why we've outsourced a lot of it. And same with gypsum, same exact thing. It will take almost a decade to get it up to the production that we need to have it meet the demand that we have for building materials. It's going to take a long time. But that being said, all of this is just thoughts in the wind because we have no clue. Every time we turn around, something else has changed. Now, all of these things can be renegotiated with all these different countries. I'm in hopes of that's what's happening. You know, we're strong arming in order to make things happen in a way to make it more fair is what the thought process is behind that. I am in high hopes for that. But in the meantime, you're looking at prices for the most like tiny homes that are built here in the United States. You're looking at a minimum of an additional $10,000 at minimum. At minimum. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot to maybe a lot of people, but $10,000 when you're looking for the most affordable housing option right now is a lot of money. And if there's supply chain restraints, that $10,000 can grow pretty darn quickly. Pretty darn quickly. You know, we remember what happened with freaking toilet paper, for God's sakes. And we make that here. We make that here in the United States. And you saw what happened when people freaked out. And if we have constraints in the supply chain, all that does is drive up the cost of things. We've already seen this show before. So Charlton says, to answer your question, I did a poll question there. Make sure you answer that. Kristina, you'll have to check with the golfing experts. Now. Let's try to be as diplomatic about this as possible. Anybody that says they know exactly what's going to happen is full of malarkey. All we are doing is speculating at this point. Nobody's really happy. Nobody's really happy about this whole thing. But that could possibly mean that it's because we now have the leverage. It could mean that. It could mean that. So I just want to try to like look at this as with a blank screen as possible. History may have shown us something completely different. Maybe the experts are wrong. It's very possible. So, you know, let's try to look at this and see how things can go before everybody's like, the sky is falling, you know what I'm saying? I think tomorrow's going to be a real interesting day. I also think that if stock market continues to head in the direction that it has for the last couple of days, we could also see mortgage interest rates come down, which could be a very good thing, especially if they, that drives down, the monthly cost for a house. And if you were on the fence and you were looking at mortgage rates, maybe in your mind, this would be the best time to buy because mortgage rates would come down. If builders aren't building as many houses right now and they're nervous and they have a environment of people that are nervous and they're still sitting on the fence, you could probably get a better deal with a home builder right now. And if the payment's right and you have a nice security in your job, maybe it's something that you should be looking at. But, I told you for the last 2 years, if mortgage interest rates were to come down, there would be two reasons. One, the job market has turned to literal garbage, or there would be some other major economic disaster that has happened that made mortgage interest rates come down the way that they could be coming down.
Super
chat. Thank you. So Eddie is not 21. He is 48 years old. 48. He is a baby. Kristina is much older. I'm a cougar. I'm much older than my husband. And Eddie, for his birthday, do you know what he got himself? And you guys are going to die when I tell you this. My 17-year-old Pomeranian has left for the Rainbow Bridge. Everybody knows that from last week. And we both said the last thing that we want in this house is another dog. And we know we can't replace our poor Dom. And then we went to go get cat food. And yesterday he instantly fell in love with, of all things, a puppy. He was at an adoption event and as soon as he picked up the dog, that was it. That was the end of that. Eddie, at some point, you're going to have to show this dog to these people. It is the cutest darn thing. And it is now his best friend. And he's now named him Buddy. Now he's named him Buddy. Gillian says, I was thinking raw land sales would increase, but No one can afford houses, but building a new house might end up costing you more than building a house due to the tariffs, right? Okay, so I've been advocating for this for quite some time. I don't think there's a wrong time to buy a piece of dirt. You don't see as much like the prices of land don't go up like the prices of housing does. In a neighborhood, you can see houses go up, 10, 20%, like during the pandemic, very easily. Thank you, Eric the Blue. I appreciate that. Happy birthday. And so I don't think it's ever a wrong time to invest in a piece of land. That being said, whenever you buy that piece of land, you're going to want to do things to it, like get a well, get the electricity out there. There are some things you should be doing to that piece of property to increase its value. I don't think there's a wrong time or right time to do that. It's when you have the ability and the availability to do it. To build a house, one of my good friends, Melissa, she actually teaches people how to build their own house. If you're going to do it and do it yourself, you better buy those. If the tariffs stay the way they are, I'll caveat that. If the tariffs stay where they are, buy those building materials now. And let me just tell you, I always err on the side of caution when it comes to things. So at the beginning of this week, I decided to do things that I knew would cost me more money. And I wasn't going to go buy toilet paper, but you guys know as well as I do. What do I do more than anything? I drink a lot of hot tea, like a ridiculous amount. So what did I do? I got the biggest bag of tea bags you could possibly get because I was so afraid because this bag cost me $60. I don't want to pay $120. So there are things that I'm doing to offset in case these tariffs actually do go through the way that they're anticipated. So, I'm not going to go buy toilet paper, but I'm definitely going to buy things that I know won't go bad. And I'm not going to live without my hot tea. Thank you so much, Eric the Blue. I appreciate you. If you guys have any questions or you want to make a specific comment about the tariffs and what you think is going to happen, I would love to have that discussion with you guys. If you want to leave a question, go ahead and put the word question first, and then the question that you would like to, to have answered. And then if you would like to have a comment made, put the word comment so we can have a whole discussion here in the chat with everybody, because I like to have an open dialogue. The one thing I will say is please no name calling, stop that. It's just so incredibly childish. Whether you like things or not, there's no reason to have name calling. Kristina says no, absolutely not. All right. Frank Brock says housing prices will drop as financial grifters get destroyed in the stock market. That inventory will get pushed onto the market and boom, prices will drop. Frank, you made me think about something really. You actually did. Because I was just thinking about all of those investors that bought during the pandemic, especially those like lower end homes. Some of these companies are not going to last. Not all private equity investment firms made the best financial real estate decisions when they were buying those houses. Because, even if you're buying them cash, if you don't have people that have the money to afford your rents and you have a spread of what you need to make, they might start dumping them. You see it in Florida because of the insurance and the taxes. Some of them are already, like in some of those areas, they're starting to dump them. And if that's the case, that's fine. But who's going to come pick them up? Because in 2008, the whole reason this ridiculousness with like BlackRock and all these companies that were buying up these rental properties, they bought them during the last housing crash because they got them at a massive discount. They just bought a bunch of houses that were sitting vacant. And then they dolled them up, gave them to homes, homes for rent or rent for homes and all this other crap. They did all that. They got the houses on the cheap. Could they bundle these houses up again and just sell them to another private equity firm? Or would they put them on the market and see what they can get for them? Only time's going to tell. And like I said, anybody can say anything and they can act like they have the almighty crystal ball, like they know everything. But again, we're sitting in unprecedented times. So we have history to look at, but it doesn't necessarily repeat, but it definitely rhymes. I'm just going to put it that way. Harley said, Harley Dude says, these tariffs, in my opinion, were made to eliminate one-sided economic policies set by foreign countries on American goods. That's one theory. That is one theory. Microfox says, in order for these builders to make a profit in the housing market, at large needs to go up or at a very steady, at least remain very steady. And it would help if interest rates would come down. Yeah. And, some people didn't even, like my husband and I didn't refinance when the rates went down the last time. We probably should have, but we did not. We just stayed where we were at. So, I mean, that's a possibility. I think a lot of home builders, though, because my husband is out in the field and he talks to home builders all day, every day. And the big track builders, they're going to continue to build. But you know what they're building, which is a good thing for all of us that are looking for more affordable housing? They're building smaller. They're building smaller because they know that's what's good people can afford. And they know that's what they can continue to sell. Because every housing market, no matter what market it is, first-time home buyers drive it. And if you bring down the size and the cost of housing, it's going to sell, right? So when the market starts to shift, then you start seeing bigger houses being built. But this year, they're looking at building smaller houses. Great for us. So if they're starting to build smaller and the interest rates are coming down, that's all it could do is help affordable housing. Sly All Day says, question, I talked to a realtor with 5 years experience, told me 3% is the standard. I thought the fee was negotiable. Oh, you're talking about commissions, right? I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. So there is no standard fee. There never has been a standard fee. It always has been negotiable. Now, I've had brokerages that told me I couldn't offer. They'd say, we're not a discount brokerage. We have to have it set at this price. Now, that's my broker had told me that, but it is not the standard fee. There is no such thing as a standard fee. You're willing to pay what you're willing to pay for that service. If that agent isn't willing to accept that amount, then you can go ahead and find yourself another agent. There are plenty of agents out there right now that are willing to work for less commission. There's some that are not, but that's part of the negotiation process. That doesn't necessarily mean you still have the negotiation ability if you're buying a house. Even when you have a contract with your agent that you're working with, you can still request the seller to pay the fee to the buyer's agent out of their proceeds. That's part of your negotiation tool when you're negotiating the prices for the house. So there is no set standard. There is no set standard of 3%. That may be what she said, or they said, or he said, but no, everything's negotiable. Everything, even down to the patio furniture. So yeah, great question though. That happens a lot. That happens a lot. It's just easy to roll off the tongue. Oh, it's a standard 3%. No, it's not. According to many lawsuits, it is not. It's not standard. It's negotiable. Jeffrey says, question. Markets fluctuate. That is a fact. We have been long overdue for a major correction. The stock market is for long-term wealth, not short-term riches. I concur. And I saw people panicking on Friday, saying they were going to take all their money and take it out of their 401k and then move it to a money market account. Great. This is not my financial advice by any means of the imagination. But to me, I mean, I'm old enough now that I've seen plenty of blips in the stock market, right? Last thing I would do, I won't even open my 401k. We won't even look at it. I'm not touching that thing. No, not touching it. The time to have moved it has already passed. At this time, I'm leaving that sucker alone. No, because this too shall pass. Nothing lasts forever. And that's just like buying a house, right? Do you know what people said to my husband and I when we were looking at houses? Why would you buy a house? This is the worst housing market in history. Why would you buy a house now? This is so stupid. That was like, because we were at the end of 2007, the writing was on the wall. It wasn't until 2008 that there was the actual crash. We ended up buying a brand new house. And everything worked out. I mean, sure, it went down a little bit in value in the area, but by the time that we wanted to move, we had gained some equity in that house. If I had stayed in that house for more than 10 years, I would have gained a heck of a lot more equity, but I didn't. I ended up, moving to another area. This too shall pass. This is just a blip in history. Let's hope anyway. But that's what I always think that. I always think that. I don't think this is a long-term thing. My dog was named Buddy. Hey, Red. Yes. So Eddie got the dog. We didn't know what to name him. There he is. Yep. That is the new dog. And we didn't know what to name him all day yesterday, though. He was like, come on, bud. Come on, buddy. Come on. And so we went to bed last night. He's like, I still don't know what to name the dog. I said, well, yes, you do. You're going to call him Buddy. You've been calling him Buddy all day. He's like, oh, I guess you're right. His name's Buddy. Yeah. So the dog that Eddie said specifically, we're not getting another dog. Dom was our dog. We're not getting another one, and especially not a puppy. It wasn't even 4 days later he fell in love. Melissa S says, yeah, we said no more dogs after our Great Dane passed, but because we could not handle another large dog, so we got a Chihuahua. Yeah, and that Chihuahua will live 20 years. Like my Dom, I mean, he was nearly 18 years old. Yeah. That Wednesday was a bad day, but yesterday was a light in the house again. Yeah. So Wilton Town Gal says, great. Does your friend Melissa have a YouTube channel that teaches folks how to build their own house? Link, please. Awesome. I think the channel name is Build Your Own House. That's the channel name, Build Your Own House. Her and her husband run that program together. They give free advice on the YouTube channel itself, but they have a whole, like, if you go into their about section, they have a whole link in the description to different packages that helps you build your own house. Whether, it walks you through the whole thing. If you want like hand holding, there's different packages you can look up there. But yeah, Melissa's awesome. Violet says, question, solar off-grid houses need no electrical hookups? Yes. Great question. This has to do with your specific county and regulations. Some areas, if you have a recreational piece of property, they're not going to require you to have any electricity out there. But other areas are going to require that. Now, if you live in an area that the land lot is zoned single family dwelling, and it's in the certain city limits, they may require you to have electricity and a pole out there, and you might be required in order to get the owner occupancy for your house out there. They might make you do it. The other thing they make you do is they make you put down a sewer and water well, or you have to connect to the city. This is going to be very individual for your specific area, all the way, not just the state, all the way down to the county and town. So the best thing you can do is call into planning and zoning and ask them what you need for this piece of land. Tell them exactly what you're doing on that piece of land, whether you're going to be living there full time or not. Ask if you can have a tiny home with wheels. All these things are important. The more information you give them, it's better off for you, so you don't get in trouble down the road. You don't want to get fined for something so dumb because you didn't know. A lot of times people will say like, oh, it's better to ask for forgiveness than for permission. Not when they can put a lien on your property and take it away from you in foreclosure because you didn't have the proper permitting, or you didn't have a light pole out there even though you're using solar power. Just go call, ask. Just do that first. Yep. So MH08 says, what's the shelf life of that much tea? Well, tea also has can eventually go bad. Tea bags have a shelf life of 6 to 12 months if stored properly. However, tea bags exposed to moisture can lead to going bad quickly. It's always good to check the expiration date of tea bags before using them. Okay. These tea bags will be put in different containers because Kristina is obsessed. And I have one of those like food sucker things, that, it sucks out all the oxygen, makes it like a vacuum seal. And I will put them in those bags first before, they're going to be properly stored. Dr. Tanya says, question, what is your prediction about what will happen with rent prices? Let me pull up my crystal ball. Um, the problem that a lot of landlords have, especially smaller landlords have, is that it isn't just as necessarily the cost of maintaining the house. Landlords like in my area here, we are getting hit hard with the cost of insurance. It double. So I'm just going to give you an example. Next door, 2 years ago, the insurance was $1,300. Then it went up to $3,200. The new renewal on that insurance is $7,600. And that's a matter of over almost 3 years. That's how much homeowners insurance has gone up. Some landlords are not going to be able to offset and make those rent prices cheaper for people. No, they just can't. It's impossible. But if you have like an apartment building, you're not in an area that has seen drastic hikes in property taxes and insurance, it's possible that rent prices could go down, especially if it's like those equity firms have the more leeway. They have more opportunity to do that. We'll see what happens. I just don't know. I honestly do not know. Grant says, question, if the U.S. did get the infrastructure in place for manufacturing, wouldn't the cost of products produced still be extremely high to the cost of labor in each state? Good question. Yes, it would, because I know people want to bring back manufacturing here in the United States, and I'm all for that, except for we have been designed since the 50s to not really want those jobs anymore. Like, it's hard freaking work. We're just going to give you a small example. Construction in the United States, home construction, is not necessarily a bad paying job, but it happens to suck. It's hot outside. It's miserable. You got all these other tradesmen bidding your bid down, and then you're having to live off pittance after you get done doing the work that you've done, because the foreman took all the money, and now you're the one, you don't even make nearly as much as you could years ago. That is going to continue in manufacturing jobs as well. The reason why, manufacturing went overseas is because big companies could do it for a lot less expensive, lot less money. I saw a perfect example, and it was coffee beans. So coffee beans in the United States, yeah, sure, we could grow coffee here in Louisiana. Community Coffee tried to do it, turned out awful, and so they started shipping in beans from other countries. We also can make coffee in Hawaii. Yeah, it's very possible. We've been doing it for eons. Matter of fact, go ahead and look up the cost of Kona coffee beans and tell me how much that is. A bag of those is super expensive. It can be done, but we have to pay those people to do that. To process it, it's more expensive here in the United States. We work for a higher living wage than they do in other countries. That doesn't mean they're living on pennies. It means that their cost of living for them is a lot less expensive than it is here in the United States. In order to keep up with the cost of living and wanting people to work those jobs, you're going to have to pay them more. And in turn, what does that happen? That makes the product more expensive. So yes, you're correct. 100%. Yep. You are correct. And there's going to have to be some kind of subsidies in order to make it work in a way that it isn't more expensive. There has to be something to offset it. It's kind of like with the farmers and the cows and the cheese. You remember, that's why they had all that government cheese and the cheese caves, because of government subsidies, so these people wouldn't fold up their business. It's kind of like the same thing. Question, I'm buying land and I am leaning toward a one-bedroom mobile home because tiny homes and park models seem to be a lot more expensive. Good call, by the way. Which of the three options would be least impacted in the cost-wise on tariffs? So you're not going to see the immediate response to tariff prices in modular home, in manufactured home construction right now. If you are, it's because they're banking on your fear. So find out what it was a week ago before they decided to change the price, because they didn't pay any more for that freaking house. So don't let them snowball you in that. That's a hose, and that's a lie. I would buy the house that's on their lot because it's already been shipped there, so you don't have to pay any extra for that as well. And I would go with the like you said, the 1-bedroom mobile home. So yeah, that would be the one that's the least impacted by tariff prices. And any of these companies that are saying that there's a cost, if they have that tiny home, mobile home, park model home on their lot, and they're increasing it because of tariffs right now, they're trying to get one over on you. You can't implement something on Wednesday and expect the price to jump up, $4,000 because of a tariff, and it's sitting on your lot today. That's a lie. So don't let them do that to you, because I know they know that people their brain gets infected by what's written on headlines. I'm just as guilty as anybody else. The effects of these is not going to be felt for a little while. The impact of this is not going to be felt for 1 to 3 months. If you're looking to do it now before this change happens. Just Cruising Mom says, what do you think about eliminating the IRS and a set 23% tax on homes? We've talked about this before. There is I don't necessarily think that is the right way to do it. I'm not an economist when it comes to this. Eliminating the IRS, I think they just fired like 20,000 people. And then I read somewhere that they've had the least amount of people filing taxes and paying their taxes than they've had at this time in several years. Like normally at this time, they've acquired so much money from people's taxes, and people are waiting till the last minute to file their taxes this year. So that could be interesting. I don't know about eliminating the IRS. There would have to be some other mechanisms to make that happen. I'm always just blown away how much could be done. I didn't realize you could do so many things in such a short period of time when you want it. Like I thought the government was pretty slow moving, but when you want it bad enough, all it does is take a little flick of the pen and just poosh, things happen. That's not what I learned in civics class, but who am I to say? We're living in unprecedented times. Maggie Smith says, in real estate fee, is the real estate fee any different? Are land loans hard to get? Is it usually a 15-year mortgage? Is it easy to qualify? So you're talking about land loans altogether. So yes, land loans are a lot less time. You can negotiate that time with your lender as well, but they don't do 30-year fixed rate mortgages unless you are getting you're getting the land and you're planning on building a structure on it as well. So what you do is you end up rolling those loans together. It's a builder's package loan. So the builder and yourself have draws. So the land is bought, and then the builder can't build until he's done certain amounts of things to the piece of property. Then he can take another draw. That's different, right? Then you can roll it at the end into a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. The interest rates on land loans are a little bit higher because the equity stakes for the land, the mortgage holder are higher. Like what are they supposed to do with a piece of dirt if you were to be foreclosed on? So the interest rates on those are a lot higher. So yeah, I think I answered all your questions. I hope I did. Charlton Zimmerman says, question, would it work to buy a farmhouse on 5 to 10 acres, divide off the house, subdivide those to 1 acre lots, and then borrow on the lots? So subdividing a piece of property can become very, very expensive. And before if you look at a piece of dirt and you're like, oh, I'm just going to go ahead and subdivide it. Again, you're going to have to check with planning and zoning. They may not allow you to subdivide those into individual lots. And not only that, they may say to you, if you're going to do that, you have to register as a subdivision, because you're taking an original piece of land and subdividing it off. It's very common here in Louisiana that you see family that has land. They will buy 10, 20 acres, and then they'll subdivide it off for each family member. But here, the parish, which is the county, here in Louisiana, it's called a parish. They'll tell them, in order for that to happen, because there's going to be one roadway that goes all the way down, now you have to file it as a subdivision. And that's a whole new ball of wax. And that's going to cost you a lot more money because now you're into planning and development. I don't know. Like here you have to make it 1 acre lots. And if it's all originally owned by you, then it becomes a subdivision and you're selling it off as a land developer at that point. Buddy has a wickedly cute side eye. So that side eye came in, by the way, as soon as Eddie picked him up, the dog like looked over at me, and I swear he was telepathy saying to me, "Hey, is this working? Are you going to adopt me? Because I'm ready to go." Mini Art Studio says, "Sorry for your loss. Buddy looks a little annoyed. It looks like trouble." No, honestly, he's really smart, and apparently the foster parent that has been raising him has taught him all sorts of tricks. So that was kind of cool. He knows how to sit, lay down. You can put the food in front of him and he waits. And then you have to say, go eat. And then he'll eat. He's a wicked smart little dog, not potty trained, which really sucks. But we've been with my 18-year-old senior dog. We've been cleaning up pee and poo quite a bit. So this isn't new. This is just a lot smaller because it's a puppy. Totally off the subject of real estate, but the list says some builders will let a house sit empty for months rather than go down too much. Depends on the builder. Yes, they will. Some of them will. Some of them do that. I've even seen this in New York City. They use it as a loss on their taxes. They'll keep that building empty because they would rather do that than do any kind of subsidy housing whatsoever. Because they'll like change the rules. And they'll just like, you know what? I'll just keep this building vacant and see what happens. And some builders kind of do the same thing with their properties. It's very possible they would do that. Eddie and I had a guy that we were going to, I'm a real estate agent. So I said, hey, you know what? I would like to buy your house. I will buy it. Just take off my commission price off of the price of the house. He wouldn't do it. He would not do it. And that house sat there for 9 months. 9 months before it ever sold. And then he took a hit. And once he took a hit, he ended up having to pay the buyer's agent and the seller's agent. So it actually came down 6%. So he even lost even more. Some people are just dingleberries. That's all there is. Kristina Smallhorn, is she in Utah? Who's in Utah? Who's in Utah? I don't know.
I think he's asking for the lady you talked about earlier about building houses.
Yes, she is in Utah. That is correcto mundo. Correcto mundo. That is correct. Thank you, Edward. I appreciate that. Condolences on Dom the Palm. Yep. Welcome, buddy, to the best real estate whisperer page on YouTube. Yep. If he wasn't sleeping, I'd make Eddie put him on the screen. Oh, you know what? We have a phone call today, and it actually has to relate to land. So let's go ahead and take a listen to that phone call, if we could. Eduardo, please. Pretty please.
Tracy. Unfortunately, Colorado Springs, Colorado. I own land out here. I bought 40 acres 20 years ago. Codes have changed. You are not allowed to do whatever you would like out here anymore. I have been trying to improve my vacant land. I do have a well. I have power. But anything beyond that, I have to have a contractor involved. You are not allowed to make improvements on this land on my own. I was wondering if you know any ways of getting around that. Thank you.
I don't know how it works in Colorado, but I will tell you, in many states, they will allow you to be your own contractor. It's a little process you have to file, and in some states they'll say, yes, you can be the contractor. You're still going to have to pull a permit, but you can't sell that property with the contracted work that you've done on yourself for X amount of years before. Like, well, let's just say you have to wait 2 years before you can sell that house with the contracted work that you did, as long as you pull up the permits. You may want to check with your local planning and zoning on how you actually can get around that. I'm telling you, just from personal experience, if you walk in there with a box of donuts and talk to the lady at the front desk and ask them for help in that direction, they're going to give you a lot more help. Like when you go in there into any planning and zoning office and you go in there hot and just blazing, and you're all red and you're like, this is ridiculous. You're not going to get anywhere. And I'm not saying that you would. I'm just telling you, like, because I've been super annoyed with some stuff that's happened here in Louisiana. Just go up there, ask them how you can get around it. See if you can become your own contractor, so that way you can do what you want to do to your piece of property. I'm sorry that's happened to you. That really does suck, especially if you've been living in a rural area that decided to expand and now they're going to throw these rules onto you. The good thing is you do have your power and your electricity and your sewer out there. So best of luck to you. Sorry you don't like your area, but I think Colorado Springs is beautiful. Violet says, question, luxury van lifers are using a toilet that automatically bags and seals are bags and seals are number twos. Oh, I gotcha. Number twos. The poops that can be tossed in a regular trash bag, like baby diapers and baby wipes. Can that play in as instead of a septic tanks? Now, what that's called a composting toilet. Yes, I know all about them. And again, that's a city ordinance for that specific area. Some city ordinances will flat out say absolutely no type of composting or removal of trash bag type of poops. Because they consider that like fecal matter waste that they do not want in trash cans and landfills. So they will say to you, nope, no type of toiletry like that. They will require you to have a sewer. The majority of places that the closer you are to the city, most likely they're not going to allow for a composting toilet. The further you get away from the city or a major town, most likely they're going to say, I don't care what you're doing out there. It's recreational campgrounds. But I was in the smallest town that I've ever been into in my entire life. And this was a tiny home friendly town. It was the first one in the United States. That's what their claim to fame is. It's in Spur, Texas. And they flat out said, you cannot have composting toilets. Granted, their well system or their sewer system in the area was so old and it had tons of cracks and problems over the years, but they were trying to improve that. And in order to improve that, they needed money. And in order for that to happen, they decided to declare themselves as a tiny home friendly town, the first one in the United States. So that way more people would move in there so they could fix their infrastructure in the area. Pretty smart move on their end. I don't know how that ended up turning out. I haven't looked out there since 2020. So interesting thought process, but most areas are going to require you to have some kind of plumbing system. Now, I know if you think of like RV parks and stuff like that, they still have a place to suck the dookie out. They have a whole system to suck the poop out. So that's why those are able to get away with that. This is a rare moment. I'm drinking a coffee drink. I never do that. You're seeing something unusual today. I see you overjoyed. Tax the penguins. So I'm really interested to know, like, so if you've seen what's been going on in the stock market, matter of fact, the futures trading will start really soon in this afternoon on what's going to happen in the stock market. Do you think mortgage interest rates, if tomorrow ends up being just as bad as Thursday and Friday of last week, if tomorrow the stock market continues to tumble, do you think mortgage interest rates are going to continue to come down? Let me know in the comment section. I'd love to know what you think about that. Jason Moore says AI would production abroad. You know what? I don't know what you're asking, but I will like to make a comment about this too, because this was brought up in another real estate group. If we bring a lot of manufacturing jobs here back to the United States, a lot of them, you can look at the automotive industry. A lot of workers, a lot less workers are required in those manufacturing plants like they did in the 50s and 60s. You just don't see that because automation has taken over. A lot of automation has taken over. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be people that are going to be required to, let's just say, take one thing over from one side of the plant to the other side of the plant. There's still going to be people that need to run those machines. There's still going to be people that need to maintain those machines for the automation to work. Again, that is more investment in infrastructure that needs to be done prior to any manufacturing happening here in the United States. Even if you were to take an old factory, right? We'll just say the old gypsum factory in Texas. It hasn't been open for the last 10 years. We're going to go ahead and start the gypsum factory all up again in Texas. Those machines are old. If they're even in that building anymore, you're still going to require to get those machines back into the factory. That is going to be, the machine itself is going to be tariffed because we don't make those machines here in the United States. So now you have the machines that are going to cost more to get into the factory in the first place. To reset up that whole entire factory is going to take a minimum of 4 years, and to have a trained staff to make it happen as well. All of these things you have to pay for it beforehand. It isn't a flip of the switch. Like, boop, now we have all these jobs. Now we can manufacture ourselves. Everything's coming down because it's American made. It takes a long time, a very long time to make this happen, especially to bring down the cost of housing. It is not overnight. Anyways, SB says, do we know what the interest rates are currently? It's like they dropped. It was 6.5, right? Hold on, stop. Yeah, 6.39. 6.39. Thank you. And then the 15 was under 5, right? Yeah, 5.72 for the 15. I have to get really close. Eddie's making that super small. Eddie, can you make that bigger? Thank you. Now we can see it. 30-year VA loan is 5.91. So it's under 6. And I think if it continues to go like it did the last couple of days, I think we can even see mortgage interest rates come down even further. I think we can let that happen. Yeah, 5.9. But you got to remember too, with the FHA and VA and stuff, not VA, but FHA, you're still going to have to pay PMI. So even though your mortgage rate is lower, the payment may be higher than conventional because of PMI. Just remember that. Zach says, why buy an expensive Canadian wood when you can buy cheaper American wood? Because we don't have the type of wood. We do not have the amount of wood that we would need and the type of wood that we need, which is a soft lumber. We don't have enough of it here in the United States. Now, there is some talk and theory that if you loosen the regulations on our protected federal lands, that they can start logging that instead. But there's only so much you can do with that. There's only so much. There's only so many trees that will fill that need, and for a short period of time, it's going to be a short stint that would actually work. Most of the lumber in Canada, it comes from Canada because it comes from unlivable areas. And that's why it's able to be logged and brought here to the United States. And that's why we've had this trade with them for eons. But it's not just lumber. I mean, we're not talking just lumber. We're talking copper wiring. We're talking drywall. We're talking gypsum. We're talking the steel from the nails. We're talking the aluminum, the specific type of backing that goes in the roofing materials, that reflective radiant barrier, all of that, every single part of, we're in a global economy, and not everything can be made here. We don't have the raw materials to start with. We don't have the experienced people to make it. Not yet. And it takes time for all those things to happen in order for it to be a plus on our end. Overjoyed says, are the cats annoyed by the new pup? Most of them just, our cats are pretty chillax. We already have 2 dogs. And so the only one that's really annoyed is the one that's trying to play with the puppy. And then they just don't know each other yet. So I think what's going to end up happening, they're going to be best friends. But right now they're trying to figure out their boundaries. We have one younger cat that's puppy bound. Trying to figure them out. Violet says, I've signed a lot of petitions to save our old growth trees. Yeah. I'm not a big fan, and you guys tell me what your opinion is, but I'm not a big fan of pillaging our national parks for building more housing. I'm a big proponent, and you guys know this more than anybody. I'm a big proponent of finding ways to make housing more affordable, but I think at the detriment of our national parks and some of our areas that have had trees forever. I think that's a very short-sighted, very dumb move. I don't know exactly if that's going to happen. That is just one of those things that I have read in articles that's why they're trying to change the national parks, is to make them privatized and not have to pay through taxpayer monies, so they can start taking some of the raw materials in these national parks to make things more here in the United States. I just think there's a better way to do it. These parks, I can't imagine that, like, in order to go see the Grand Canyon, you're going to have to, sponsored by Frito-Lay, you're going to have to pay $27 to get that view of a picture. And then off to the left-hand side, there's nothing but condos. That actually kind of grosses me out. It makes me sick to my stomach. I would love to have more affordable housing. I don't want that to be the way that it happens. So Chris Register said, that got rid of a lot of factories because they were poisoning those towns. And now we have to get back to it. All to that ridiculous. You know what? That is an interesting thought. Factories are not clean. They are not factories are not clean. They have caused lots of problems in the environment. The environmental protections that are there now a lot of them have been dismantled. And matter of fact, here in Louisiana, a company was about to get themselves in hot water. They were under investigation, hot water, because they've been poisoning its residents. Has the highest rate of cancer, specific type of cancer, right there, right by the factory. And then all of a sudden, that just disappeared off the docket. It's no longer there. Those people will never get justice, and the rates of cancer will still continue to increase. And if you put a bunch of new factories in there, do you think that there's going to be oversight of those factories, making sure that the residents of that area that are probably working in that plant aren't getting sick from the raw materials that they're breathing in? I don't think so. JC Excellent says, question, can you please explain the difference between the USDA PMI? It's not PMI under USDA, but an annual fee, upfront fees, guarantee fees. Thank you. I am not a lender, right? So this is the very rudimentary level I'm going to explain between the FHA and USDA, which is also known as the Rural Development Loan. The amount that you can borrow with a USDA loan or Rural Development Loan is higher, meaning that you can roll in your closing costs. So if the cost of the house was $150,000 and your closing costs or $100 would be $3,000, you could roll all of that in. I think it's up to 105%. I could be wrong about that. Again, I'm not a lender. You can roll that all into one loan, and your PMI will reflect that. With FHA, you can roll. I think you can do a 95% loan, so you still have to put a little bit down, but you don't have to put as much down. So you can put that 5% down, but you're still going to have to pay your closing costs, and your PMI is going to be reflective of that. That's the simplest way I can put it. I need to have Kyle Seagraves on here again. Kyle Seagraves, Win the House You Love, is the mortgage guy on here. Hey, Frank, you're on fire today. Let's see what you got to say. It's possible that, and perhaps overdue, to start 3D printing concrete structures, structural insulated panels, insulated concrete foam, and recycled steel frames. Interesting thought, Frank. I have an aversion to 3D printed concrete homes for several reasons, and I'm going to tell you why. They were promised to us that they would be less expensive than building the traditional home, but they didn't, and they still don't do this whenever they're doing their breakdown of actually how much it costs to build a concrete home. It's a lot higher than actually a traditional built home. The only way that works, the only way it works is if they're building one entire neighborhood and it's the exact same house over and over and again. You can't build an individual house, a concrete 3D printed house, and think that you're going to save any red cents. You're not going to save any, zero, the nada. No, as a matter of fact, it's probably going to cost you more because of the cost of getting that 3D printed machine to the location costs a lot of money. That thing is 3 tons, 3 tons. And in order for that thing to work and operate correctly, you need specialized engineers. And when you hear specialized engineers, what do you hear? Cha-ching, dollar signs in the background. They are expensive people that have to monitor everything that happens with that machine, because anything that offsets that print is just like printing anything in a computer printer. The wind shifts, the ground shifts, it starts raining, anything that happens, the print starts to go off center. Now the printer lets the engineer know to go ahead and fix that, but then you're going to have to scrape off those lines and you're going to start all over again. So that's just one thing. The aspect of that is not actually less expensive. The idea is to build the same exact house over and over and over again in one entire neighborhood. Then it works. The other issue is that in the future, because these houses are usually made, the whole thing is 3D printed. So that means the wiring and everything has to be in the walls prior to it being built. Any problem that you have with that house, whether that's plumbing, wiring, you're going to have to cut into the concrete. And then you're going to have to repair that concrete. And I don't know if you know or not, but concrete isn't all put together here in the United States. Many facets of concrete are not made here. So that concrete material is going to go up in price as well. Now, I agree with you with the insulated SIPS panels. Those structural insulated panels are a way to help bring down housing costs, but they have to meet the wind speeds in for that specific area. The more wind that you have, those structured engineered panels are not going to necessarily work. I think all of the aspects of solutions for affordable housing could work at once. I think you could have modular homes that have 3D printed garages, because it would be the same freaking square over and over and over again, and you wouldn't have to worry about it looking terrible. It's a freaking garage. And then you have, like all of these things could add up to make the house less expensive. The problem is that when you're talking to builders, they're very used to doing something the same way that they've always done for the last 30 years. They're very slow to adapt to changes in the home building industry. In order for that to happen, you're going to have to force their hand by giving them incentives to start using this new way to build and build it cheaper and more effectively. That was quite a bit of a tangent. I'm sorry. But whenever those 3D printed houses have been glorified as an answer to the housing affordability crisis, and they're nowhere near it. Every investor I've ever known that's ever talked about 3D printing houses, they invested a whole bunch of money and a bunch of research went into it, and then they ended up pulling out their investment, or they just walked away from the investment because it isn't a solution. It's not a viable solution right at this time. Sly All Day says, what do you keep building with wood and materials that mold? What our material do they use in Europe? Oh, so I don't know why we don't build with more brick, and I don't know why we don't, because brick would be a lot easier. I mean, they used to do it beforehand. It certainly is a hell of a lot better than mold. I don't know why we don't do plaster. The plaster that they use in New Orleans doesn't mold like freaking drywall and gypsum. Doesn't mold. You can clean that sucker out. You drip it out, air dry it out. Doesn't mold. Does not mold like the building materials we have today. I think the only answer I have for you is the reason why they do it is it becomes less expensive and they can get it done a lot quicker. It's a hell of a lot quicker to put up a bunch of plywood and sticks and drywall and foam insulation. You can get that done a lot faster than you can putting up brick and mortar and have bricklayers out there. I mean, you're cutting off a good 2 weeks time right there. And I think that's why we build them, because we like to build things very quickly. And in the quicker a home builder can get a house built, I mean, that means the quicker they can go ahead and get it on the market. Interesting thing about that, by the way, the home builders here, some of the bigger names here in Louisiana, they're not building for people. They're not building for people. They're building for companies that are build to rent. So that's all they're doing. They're doing contracts. They're doing contract work for big investment firms and doing build to rent. And I've been warning about this for, I don't know, 4 years. And now it's happened in our little town of Baton Rouge. And I say bigger builder, I mean, it's just bigger builder in our area of South Louisiana. In a million years, they sell houses like hotcakes. But because of the uncertainty of the housing market, it's a safer bet for them to, instead of building individual houses that they could lose their shirt on, they can do this contracted work for big investment firms to build the build to rent housing. And they know they can get it done, and they know that they're going to get a check at the end of the day. That's different than what we saw in 2008. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out. Build to rent is the devil. I agree. I think it's meant to turn more of our younger people into renters. And that's why I'm such a proponent of you guys buying a piece of land. That's why I keep telling my kids, buy yourself a piece of dirt, even if you hold on to it. Let's just say the 1 year you just go ahead and get the underbrush done and get some clearing of the lot. And then the next year you decide to map it all out and find out what your setbacks are for your house. And so that way you have a plat map that you can take with you. Next year you find out how the flood zone requirements. So that way you have a piece of property you can slowly over time invest in, and it belongs to you. So when you are ready to build a house, you can. I'm a big proponent of that. Debbie Brady says the tariffs. She said, will it drive up home prices? 52% of you say yes. 23% say no. 17% said they're not sure. And 8% says it will stop new construction. The one thing I will say is that it does, even though what we saw during the pandemic was it drove up home prices because of, it wasn't because of tariffs, because the freaking pandemonium happened. Supply chain stopped. Home builders weren't able to build as quickly because they weren't able to get raw materials. The difference this time is that people are the consumer confidence this time is a little bit less. And this doesn't necessarily mean that's going to drive up resale homes up considerably. It's going to be on an individual market basis. Your market may look completely different than my market. And it's going to look completely different than the market even right next door, the next county over. So whatever you're deciding and when you're deciding, make sure you check with the local real estate agent in your area. And if you're not sure about a real estate agent and you want to see if you can check with somebody else, you can actually go to my website, go to KristinaSmallhorn.com, go on there, click on one of the pink buttons, and just ask me if I have a contact in that area that you're trying to find a real estate agent. I'll see if I have somebody connected with you. I'm honest with you if I don't have anybody. If I say I don't have anybody in that area, I will let you know. But just fill that out and then we'll talk and we can find your real estate agent. GS Excellence says, regarding the house building materials, is this the reason why they're using particle board after framing houses in apartment complexes? I've seen some kooky, weird stuff happening with housing since the pandemic. I mean, and I'm not saying that the crap didn't happen before the pandemic, but it just seemed to be elevated at a higher level. So I don't think it's necessarily just the builder. I think it's, you have a builder who wasn't on site. You have the lead on those building constructions is trying to find the cheapest labor possible, and they're not going back and checking the work. Then, like there's a series of events that happen down the road that makes a lot of these houses in apartment complexes, in multifamily units, end up being garbage and causing a lot of problems down the way. It seems like, and I'm not going to say any names because I'm not going to get myself in trouble, but always check with the Better Business Bureau when it comes to these big name companies. The bigger the name, the more you should be checking. And not only just check to see what the reviews are online, see how the company responds to those complaints. Nothing says a piece of junk company than their responses, because you're like, holy cow. If they're constantly blaming the homeowner for all of their issues, that doesn't even make sense. Their tone on how they respond to these people as well. I've seen a lot of more lawsuits recently when it comes to building than I have in a long time. So it isn't a one-step problem. It's a lot of it. Sly All Day is on fire too. It says, question, in Germany, wood is generally not used as a building material, but rather homes are built with sand, limestone, and brick masonry, a type of concrete mixture. Yeah. So it's same with the UK, right? They build it with bricks and mortar, right? I don't know why we don't do that. I really don't. And I also know in Germany and a lot of Scandinavian countries, they're not opposed to modular home construction. Like, for some reason here in the United States, we have an aversion to it. That is changing, but it's very common to have modular homes, and people, it's just a home. But for some reason in people's head, they think modular construction means that it's garbage, but it's not, especially if it's a true modular, and usually built to better specifications than a traditional built house. Over time, I think that will change the more the message gets out there. More that gets the message out there. So if you guys are looking to get a hold of me, again, you can go to my website, KristinaSmallhorn.com, click on any of the pink buttons and fill out that form. I'm sorry, I've been sick all week too, just to add to my nonsense that I've had going on. Just fill that out, hit the pink button, and I will get back to you at my earliest convenience. If you want to share this as a podcast with your friends and family, you can go to anywhere you listen to podcasts. Look for Kristina Smallhorn, Real Estate for Everyone, and you can share this week's podcast on Monday. Eddie puts that out every single Monday. And if you happen to have the time, go ahead and give us a 5-star review and write a comment. Eddie looks for that. That's Eddie's side of the thing. That's what Eddie does for the channel. He does the podcast part of it, and he does the producing part of it. So I want to say thank you to everybody that was on the stream today. This was a very fun podcast. I was glad that everybody was civil in the chat. It didn't become a hate fest, which I absolutely can't stand. I know things can get very political and it causes heated tempers. And the fact that I have the best audience in the world that doesn't get carried away makes me love you even more. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I also want to thank everybody who sent me the well wishes for my little dog, Dom the Pom, last week. That was really kind of you. It meant a lot to both Eddie and I. We were reading them aloud to one another after last week's show. So it did mean a lot to us. Thank you so much. All right, everybody, you have a fantastic week. Hold on to your britches. Hold on to your britches and don't look at your 401k tomorrow. Just don't look at it. Just walk away. All right, everybody. So long. Farewell.
Kristina signing off, this stream's about to close. Tiny homes, big dreams, the wisdom she bestows. Real estate queen, always keeping us in toes. Hustle on 1,000, every vibe she shows. Goodbye, Kristina, see you next time. In a world full of chaos, you bring the prime. From modular homes to the mortgage climb. Catch you on the flip in the next run. With mobile homes, dimension goes. Kristina's wisdom breaking molds. Dropping knowledge like we dropping gold. Fuel is locked in, never getting old.